Terrific, and I think I'm live. Um, Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me again. It's a cold Saturday morning in London, and I'm going to try and share with you some ideas today about something they call quantum communication, and perhaps even more important than that, how it helps us to create the kind of life and environment we want to have for ourselves. Now, over the last couple of years, I've come to see my videos as quite helpful. They can even be viewed as teaching tools for some unusual reasons. It's not because what I say is kind of world beating importance, though I like to think that it's a contribution to our stock of knowledge and insights, but also because we live in a world, or rather, I should say, have lived in a world in which it's incredibly unusual for people who don't look like me to look at people who look like me and listen to what they're saying. What I'm saying is that we have become acculturated, particularly those of us of African origin who live in the West, to being kind of relegated to the background mood music in such a way that even though we all participate in creating the society in which we live, our thoughts, our opinions, our insights are very rarely listened to by people who don't look like us. Now, on the back of my platform, I've got my logo up there. I'm doing this under one of my labels, which is Renaissance TV. Um, just the sight of that logo alone is enough to steer people who aren't of African origin away from this video. And I often think to myself how totally absurd that is, because I'm constantly looking at images, logo types, brand marks, which represent the United States of America, Britain, France, Germany. In fact, everything, China, India, Japan. And I find that perfectly normal. I don't think once I see, say, the Stars and Stripes, oof, forget that, that's not for me. Or I see China's flag, oof, forget that, that's not for me. Or God forbid I see, I say that because I'm British as well. Um, if I see the Union Jack or the Queen or now the King or a map of Britain, I can't sit here and say, "Oh, that's not for me." So I feel the world is reaching a point now where it having shrunk as much as it has, we all need to take the lesson of A, wanting to, and B, being able to listen to people who aren't like us. Because often the nuggets of perception, attitude, and insight that we need come from people who don't look like us, people who represent um, the other side of the tracks, if you like. So there we are. So that's another reason, self plug, for you to look at my videos. So, as I say, um, this is about what is quantum communication and how does it help us create the lives that we want. Now, I must give credit to a lady called Elena Denan. Elena Denan is actually originally French, but she is now such an international figure because she spent many years of her life as an archaeologist in Egypt. And she is actually a shaman, a druid, um, fully qualified Irish druidess. And um, so she has a pretty kind of broad spiritualism background. And to add other things to the cake, I mean, the icing on the top is that she's actually doing a lot of work in the area of off world and extraterrestrial communication. And she's doing stuff with the Galactic Federation as well. So this video is going to take us into lands and territories that many of us probably aren't accustomed to looking at. But let's keep an open mind and let's see what, if any, insights we can take away with us. First thing is, what is quantum communications? Okay, so you can hear my voice now, you can see my image now, you can read billboards on the streets as you walk down, and you can speak with people verbally using words. You can read books and imbibe the communication that way. You can watch films, you can watch videos. All of those are physical communications. Okay. And this is because they have a manifest appearance that you can sense with your basic senses. Yeah. That is physical communication. What you can't see is that there is another layer of communication altogether, invisible to our senses of hearing, sight, smell, touch, and so on, which is infinitely more elaborate and which is actually the type of communication that is the communication of the universe. So imagine, because you can read, write, listen, hear, and so on, you think that you're getting all the information that there is in the universe. You're wrong, frankly wrong. You're getting maybe 2 or 3% of the communication in the universe. The vast majority of communication that happens in the universe is of a quantum nature. So what is quantum? Quantum basically means vibrational. Obviously that's invisible. It's a form of energy that manifests in a with a wavelength, in a kind of wave format. And so when you start communicating in terms on a quantum level, you're talking about the vibrations that are increased and using these vibrations to share information. Now, Elena, in one of her beautiful videos, explained that there are two basic ways this information is shared. First of all, emotionally. If you have energy, any energy will have an emotional charge. Okay. So if you're a human being, for example, and you're near people who you love, you discharge this energy, and the vibration of that energy is what we call love. Can't see it, but it is definitely experienced by the people who we love, our children, our partners, our significant others, extended family, sometimes even society. And there is the reverse of that, of course. There is feelings of antipathy, um, anger, fear, hatred, resentment, frustration. All of these emotions pack an energetic resonance, which, here's the kicker, while invisible to the naked eye, is experienced by everybody in your environment. Which is why, if you're an angry person, you're constantly surrounded by people who give you cause to vent your rage, you know? And the connection between the way what you're communicating and how you're communicating it and your environment is that actually the vibrations you're discharging um, in the information that you're imparting, which is invisible, is what is forming and shaping your environment. That is quantum communication. And for example, in Buddhism, they talk about the oneness of self and environment. They're talking about quantum communication. What they're saying is your life state will create the world in which you find yourself in. Okay. Um, in other social philosophies, they say things like "as within, so without." What they're saying is that the quantum communication you're engaging in with your environment is shaping what that's going on. That's one type of quantum communication. Another type of quantum communication, this is actually far more interesting to me, is that um, uh, you can send whole packets of information vibrationally to other people. So you can send pages, you could send a book on a quantum level to another person. You could send pictures on another, you know, if you like, to another uh, person. Look, one of the things that it was when I started understanding quantum communication that I better started to understand the work of a great man called Felix Konoteaholu. He's actually a medical doctor, but he's written a lot of work. He's done a lot of work about tonal languages and so on. Is that the tones that you use to express yourself in many African languages have an amazing um, uh, impact on their meaning. So that if you have the slightest difference in tone, like sha and sha, totally different meanings. The first sound actually means fart. The other sound actually means wash. Complete opposites. Farts are a bit kind of pongy, and when you wash something, you're cleaning it up. So it's a completely opposite meaning. But it's the energetic resonance that ascribes the meaning to the words. Also, some of those languages speak in proverbs. Okay, so people talk about oral traditions and so on. Proverbs are ways of encoding whole philosophical ideas in a short phrase. Like there's a phrase in the Akan language which says that the beast that bites you is hidden in your own clothes. Now, you could spend 2 days unpacking that philosophically, but it's a huge amount of information that's put across that way. Now, of course, you hear it and you can translate it literally, but the literal meaning of the insect or the beast that bites you comes from your own cloth. It's so superficial. It's like an iceberg. That's just the tip of what you see. When you sit down and analyze the meaning of that, it means a whole lot more. So, quantum communication can be used to convey huge amounts of energy. And that is what a lot of people call telepathy. Telepathy is a form of quantum communication. Now, because quantum communication is itself the language of the universe, it is very important for us to understand A, what it is, and if possible, develop the ability to use quantum communication. Yeah. Now, how do we do this? Takes me to my next step is that to receive and decipher energetic information requires for your life to be at a certain level of resonance. It's a little bit like a radio. Like if you're walking down the street and you don't have access to a radio, as far as you're concerned, there aren't any radio waves around. The moment you have access to a receiver and you tune into the right frequency or right frequencies, there's any number of channels broadcasting. The same with broadcast communications of any kind. So the important point about quantum communication is that you must have a receiver that can receive and decode the information. And if you want to send a message back, You need to have a transmitter that can send that information to the other party. Now, all of this is happening in the world around you and I. The question is, do you have the inner receiver and the inner transmitter of this information? Remember, amongst humans living in this density of resonance, um, it's all about what we see, hear, and sense with our physical senses. It's a tiny sliver of the huge pie of information that is out there in the universe that, because we don't have access to quantum communication actively in our lives, we're not conscious of. Um, so now, how can I get on to the next thing? Yes, it is by accessing your heart center that you access your real self. A lot of us are so blind to our inner lives that everything is purely on the physical level. Our opinions are shaped by people outside us, our peers, our families, the schools we went to, the society in which we live, the media, um, authorities, so-called authorities, authorities that people told you to look up to as authorities, our rulers, our politicians, and so on. All of these things are completely outside of ourselves. And you and I are typically complete masters of decoding and understanding that stuff. But it's all external. Unfortunately, we don't have the same clarity when it comes to accessing our own inner lives. And it is by accessing your own inner state, your own soul state, that you activate the transmitter and the receiver of quantum information. You know, uh, you will be able to connect with nature, the trees, blades of grass, wildlife, crystals. You will be able to engage with anything so long as you can dip, or rather raise your vibration to the quantum state. And then, rather like the person who's tuned into the right frequency, all of this information is switched on. And it is in the quantum state that you recognize that actually, in the physical state, many of us are wrongly, completely falsely manipulated into a false view of life in which one group is set above another, one group predates on the other, one group exploits the other. And it's all because they're basing everything on the 2% slice of life they have a sense of, whereas the 98% of life would tell them that actually any idea you have of predating on the other guy is is completely fallacious, because you're actually predating on yourself. Because at the quantum level, everybody and everything is connected. And so, if we on this planet are constantly warring with each other and we have nuclear weapons, whatever damage we do to this planet and this world affects the entire universe. So I'm going to close this off. How many minutes? Oh, I'm almost 20 minutes in. We're going to close this off in a couple of minutes now. So what this means is that if really the story is as within, so without, then we need to be very careful of our inner state. If it's true, as the Buddhists say, that Self and environment are two, but they are completely connected at the same time. Then we need to be careful of our life state. And to be careful of our life state, we need to access our inner world, our inner soul condition, our inner life. Once we do that, what happens is that your vibration changes. And as your vibration changes, the energy that you're putting out, one, you start to see a lot more things around you that you never believed existed or could have even been possible. And two, you start to co-create with your environment the kind of world that you want to see. Now, I'll tell you this, frankly, whenever I have intended wellness for my world, I've seen the consequences. Not only have I seen the consequences in my environment, this one I don't really understand, but maybe you might be able to unpack it for me. I have felt better myself as a person. So whatever you're putting out, when you it's hard to describe, whatever you're putting out returns to your life almost instantaneously. And that is how you realize, once you understand that, you realize that when you're doing negative stuff to other people, you're doing it to yourself. But because your resonance is so low and you're tuned out of that channel, you can't see what you're broadcasting and what it's doing to the environment. You can't see how your vibe, your resonance is affecting your environment. Now, I've always known in work situations, I'm a C-suite person of African origin. I'm usually the minority in the places and at the level I work. I'm usually the minority in the room, and so on. And people talk about us living in a post-racial society. My goodness, they must be on drugs or something that that is likely illegal, because I've always known the energy, the quantum communication that has come at me. The difference between then and now, I didn't know what was going on. I just felt that vibe. Didn't know what was going on, but I felt that vibe. I felt what the people around me were thinking, feeling about me. But of course, again, at my level, most of these people very cultured, very well educated. And whereas, they're trying to mask their behavior, or they're going to place their behavior in with actions and gestures and so on, which are very pleasant and kind of socially convivial and so on. I still felt their vibe. That's quantum communication. You can't game it. You can't. Um, you can't. You can't pretend it's not happening. And so that is more or less it. It's very, very important. If we want to create a happy world, we need to raise our resonance. We need to connect with our inner selves, not just follow the guidance that's given by the mainstream media and so on and so forth. And sometimes that guidance, is given with menaces. Recently, we all had that medical situation in which the public policy actually wanted to mandate certain treatments and so on. And there was, if not obvious, many implied threats. You've got to understand that until you can go within and connect with your quantum state, you won't even know how to respond in that situation, because you'll be somebody else's quote unquote bitch. Yeah. So there we are. That's why, that is what quantum communication is. And that is why you need to raise your resonance. You need to go inside of you and open up your receiver and open up your transmitter so you can create the kind of world you want to see. Thank you so much. This thing is going on. Probably go on YouTube and Rumble. Please like, comment, and share. It enables me to create more of this kind of content. Have a terrific weekend. Thank you. Thank you for watching.